We're already out here working on the F550. The tire rod ends, ball joints, and wheel bearings need replaced. So that's what I'm doing today. There it is, all tore apart. I'm gonna do this other side. I've had these apart before in my other truck, and we've had them apart. Dad's had it apart on his truck. It's just something you do after, 150,000 or something, they just start to get wore out. This is the biggest job we've done. My other truck, I had to put 2 new wheel bearings in the front, which I've got a little rant on later. This is the biggest thing we had to do, and this truck had been driving on not very good roads at all. And I think that's part of it, and then the lack of grease it had in the ball joints and tie rod ends was another thing that probably killed it, but that's fine, whatever. Cost a little bit of money, but it'll be good for a lot of miles then. These wheel bearings, and we've had 5 of these trucks. Now this body style, this is the newest one. Had 5 of them in the family. I had the F250 and now this F550. Dad's got an F250. Brother's got an F350, and my uncle's got an F350. All of those are 99 models. About the only great, got a really nice cab, air conditioning, heat works, radio's good in them, dash works good. The only thing I've ever seen on the cabs as far as having trouble with anything is the door latches. For the 4 of the 5 trucks we've had were all extended cab. These latches here get kind of weak, and it just doesn't seal. This one's not too bad yet, but my other truck, they were kind of loose. At the door hinges get a little worn. They still seal up fine, they just rattle a little more. Other than that, the track frame, or the power windows, the track system on them is kind of weak. So those 2 things on the cab and power strokes, you can kind of take them with a grain of salt. Whatever you want to, whatever you think with them is fine. Some people think they're great. I had them, and I can take them or leave them. Transmissions are good, axles are good. These, like I said, wheel bearings here are the only things that kind of halfway give trouble, and they're not real bad. Dad had one of them started howling on his truck last year, and I'll get into it here in a little bit once I take it apart. But the first thing got to do is let's see what I need to take off first. I need to take brake caliper off. And on the other side, someone's been in here already, and they've never seized those bolts, which is awfully nice of them to do that. Makes it a lot easier to get off. What size socket I had? Not that one. I'm about to put it back already. This one. Yep. You got an F250. You had a Dana 50 front axle, and it looks pretty close to what these are. They look about the same. The axles themselves are a little smaller. The differential a little smaller, I think. Dana 60s here in the 350s. And I think this is a Dana 60. They just haven't really upped the front of them much because they don't put that much more weight on them. They change from the cab back, or the back of the cab back, if you keep going up after a 350, because the engines only weigh so much, and they don't put that much more weight on the front end. is for the ABS wiring sensor right there. There it is. Yeah, they got never sees on there, that's nice. I'll zip tie that up and come back to you. The only thing I gotta do, you can stick an extension on the impact right here and then put the socket on, and you gotta take this row of bolts off this thing, get it off. But actually, before you do that, I think you gotta go in here. No, I can leave that on. I'll show you how to take the hub out in a minute. I had to do this on the other side to get this hub off of here. You got to get this piece, this spacer they got off of here, got to get that off to get it off the bearing so we can change the bearing. Got to get it and the brake disc off. Try that. Think it'll knock off of there. Come on. There we go. And there's wheel bearing. Okay, now the next thing. Out of the way here. Put it back over here because I'm going to need it over here next to get the ball joints out at some point. Now the next thing, the other side wasn't too bad, but this hub's got kind of stuck. It turns hard. Some people replace these original ones with like a worn hub or something. These are alright. I think I can just clean it up though and get it to do better. Come on. Big pair of channel locks fix this problem. For Pete's sake. I can get it to turn in there. Actually, it probably won't turn. It's splined in there. Other side wasn't this stuck. Well, I'm gonna come back to you. I'm done fighting this thing. Alrighty, got that hub out finally. And then behind it on the axle shaft, there's obviously the axle shaft comes into the hub here. And there's this pretty stiff snap ring there. It's a little thicker than the regular snap ring. Goes in, and then there's 3 washers. One of them's in the shape of a hex, and I never knew why they did that. Why they just didn't put 3 or a thicker washer in there, but anyway, that's what they did. It's a washer, and then the hex, and then another washer. Snap ring goes on the outside, excuse me, to hold that axle shaft out this way. Now we're ready to take the bearing. Oh, you gotta take the ABS sensor off if you have ABS. Goes in here, a little Allen head screw. Take that out, and it kind of got to bend this thing out of the way. And if you have an electronic lock 4-wheel drive, there'll be a port drilled in right here, and there'll be a vacuum hose hooked on right there. And it'll vacuum control, lock in that hub and whatnot. But anyway, you got to use a 21mm chrome socket to get in here, because it's got to be a little thinner. These things are pretty tight. And they're actually stud threads on each end. I can't remember if the new wheel bearing, I don't think they come with it. You have to take studs out of the old wheel bearing if the nut just turns off of this side. Anyway, there's nut. Do that times 4, and the wheel bearing will be out. Alright, to get that all apart, get the wheel bearing pulled out. I'll take those studs out, but because they'll need to go on the new wheel bearing. There's the ABS port. Okay, actually, I'm going to rant on this for a minute. These wheel bearings, you got to buy this assembly as one piece. You can't buy just the bearings inside. This assembly can range anywhere from $200 to $250 depending on where you get them. Surprisingly, Ford, the Motorcraft ones, were actually about $200, which is the lower end of it. And that's who I was going to go with. On my old truck, I had bought a cheap set off the internet one time. Got them off eBay, I think. They were, rebuilt ones. But they were really cheap, and one of them actually went out after about 10,000 miles, so I quit doing that. So I'm going to go with the Motorcraft one this time. And put them in, because obviously I'm planning on having the truck for a long time. The reason I wish you could just buy bearings, just take this spanner nut off and buy just the bearings inside of it. I think I took one apart at home, and I'd have to look, because there's a big seal in there they have for the vacuum assist, or for the vacuum locking hubs if you have the electronic control in the dash. They have a seal for them. Or the seal they have there, it kind of takes it's kind of a booger to put in, so I took one of these old hubs. It was bad, and I cut the center out of it to where I can use it and just push as a pusher to push the seal in. And I can't remember if they were a tapered roller bearing in there, 2 tapered roller bearings, or if they were a double row of ball bearings. I can't remember. But anyway, my uncle on his truck had took this apart one time because he just wanted to buy just the bearing to put in it and rebuild his own hubs, which I don't blame him. It'd be a lot cheaper. But I think Ford said, hey, make us this size bearing and don't sell it to anyone. It's only got to be sold to us so we can do it, make reman ones. Because either the numbers on the bearing, he couldn't get them to cross to anything when he took it apart, so he had to end up buying 2 reman ones from wherever. They and the reason I think they do that is that some Joe Schmo don't go out in his driveway sometime and take these apart and put new bearings in it and then put it back together, either get it too tight or not tight enough on this spanner nut, and the tire comes off and goes and hits a van full of whatever. You can put whatever you want in the van that it hits, but you know what I mean. I think that's why they do that. Because they don't even show in the service manual on how to service these things. But another little thing you'll want to, if you take it off and you don't replace the bearing, something else you'll want to do, if you happen to have them apart, there's a little needle bearing right here, and what that does is when the only time that needle bearing is not running is when you're in 4-wheel drive and the axle shaft is turning with the tire. Otherwise, that needle bearing's running every time you're in 2-wheel drive, and because that axle's just stationary and it just carries the axle. And I had one of those go out one time on my truck when I first got it, or they were out when I first got my truck, and just a tiny little thing goes right there, and then I think you can probably pull them out of there, or cut it out if they're wore out or something, and change just this needle bearing. But if you got it apart and they're not terribly loose, this side, the other side wasn't terribly loose, this side was more loose, and what I probably would have done is put 2 new ones in. If they were both as tight as the other side, I would just put more grease in here because they can get dried out. So that's just a little helpful tip there on that. If you got them apart, just put some more grease in here to help you out in the long run. So anyway, that's kind of the thing I don't really like about those bearings, but that's just the way it is. Now, this is the big seal here that I've sealed up with a vacuum, or it's supposed to be, you can hold a vacuum to lock those hubs in. They just put the same seal in. Come on, get out of there. I'm kind of pain to get out of there. There we go. Make sure it didn't hurt. Yeah, brake line's still good. But anyway, I'm probably just going to reuse these seals because I don't have the vacuum thing, and they're very expensive seals. And all we're trying to do is just seal that grease into that little needle bearing now, since that's what it is. A lot of times you got a truck that's been in the salt or something, these little dust seals will be bad. You'll want to replace those. All they do is just keep dirt and crap out of the axle tube. The actual oil seal for the differential is farther back in there. Just right inside the differential there is where it's at. Right now I can see all the way through it. You have to take the differential out, change the oil seals though. But luckily most of the time they don't leak. Anyway, there's that big seal. Just put some grease on it when you put it back together and everything will be alright. And that little dust seal in there, yeah, see that one was about broke anyways. Those things just pop off of there and take that off. But anyway, now I'm going to take the ball joints out. I'll have to heat upper and lower to get those things to drive out, and then do the same once they're on the bench to get them out of this piece. So, one more thing on this, and you get this apart. This top one has this sleeve deal here that kind of slips over that and clamps as it goes down in the hole there. And you can get a hook bar on there and drive on, keep hitting it, and it'll pop it out of there. I usually smack the top of that a couple times just to free things up. But then I'll have to heat the bottom one because it's just a tapered deal like the tie rod ends. You have to heat it and then hit on it a couple times and it'll drop out of there then. I gotta put a U-joint in that drive shaft. It's all stiff one way. It turns fine going one direction, but it won't even hardly bend going the other direction. I don't think the four-wheel drive's been used much at all on this truck, and that's just got stiff. The other side is alright, but anyway, back at the ranch. After I messed with the first on the right side for just a little bit, I said to heck with it, and I heated this side up red hot. You drive it out, both of them go out in the direction that the threads are pointing. It would be like they're going up in the truck. The snap ring take off on the back side. I heated this up, drove it out. Tried heating this one and it didn't. I was having to use a rod. I couldn't just use the hammer and smack it. You know, I couldn't get any swing in here. So I just took a torch, blew a hole right through the edge of it to where it can kind of almost collapse together a little bit. And I can take the rod and come in here and go. Better go find that because that's still pretty hot, but there it is. And there's the upper ball joint. But anyway, that's how you do it. I'm going to clean stuff up a little bit, and today's Saturday. I'll order parts Monday for it. I wasn't sure what all I was going to need, but well, I knew what I was going to need, but I was hesitant, hoping that something would be better shape, but oh well. Only money, can't take it with you. Only that were. But oh well, got to spend money to make money, so that is what we're doing. So thanks for watching the teardown of it.